It's gonna be a long one. Hello, welcome back to another video. As you may have guessed, seeing as it is the end of the month, we're doing another monthly roundup, which is where I sum up the books that I've read in the previous month. And I talk about cinema and shows and whatever I'm watching and what I'm up to, kind of. And I give you a little brief, sometimes not so brief, rundown of it, and yeah, that's it. It's going to be a long one today. I was participating in a readathon, which takes place every single April and also in August, but in August it's a little bit different. And it's a magical readathon which was created by Book Roast on YouTube. The idea is that we're sitting the exams as we would in Hogwarts, so she creates prompts for us and we have to match books to those prompts and read them, and yeah, it lasts all month. The first book that I read this month was Circe by Madeline Miller, and this was for I'm kind of out of breath, I'm sorry. It's kind of a retelling of the Greek gods. So we have Helios, the god of the sun, and we have I can't remember all the names, but we have a bunch of gods, and we follow this god person, Circe, who is the daughter of a god and a nymph, and nymphs are supposed to be kind of inferior to gods, and she doesn't have any extra powers, and she doesn't seem to be very special. For ages, she just feels like she doesn't belong, whatever. And then she gets, what's the word? When they send you into, as a punishment, I don't remember for what, but as a punishment, she has to go and live on this island by herself. And she actually really enjoys it, or a little bit before she discovers what her true power is, which is witchcraft. I don't know how to explain it. The writing style was a little bit different to what I'm used to, but it wasn't not enjoyable. It was just that it didn't seem like I thought that the ending was kind of well, let's just go with this. And the blurb kind of makes it seem like she's gonna have to choose between the humans and the gods, and that is not the truth, because I don't think the gods, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but I don't think the gods ever really wanted her back. So they just kind of wanted to use her when they needed her, but the rest of the time they didn't really care. So I don't think that it's very well explained what the book is about. So yeah, it was Next, I read The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. I really enjoyed it. It was such a sweet, heartwarming read. So this is a story about a boy who is autistic and who, for some reason, finds his neighbor's dog killed. So he finds the dog killed with a little fork, what do you call it? A gardening fork. I don't know if that's the legit name, but we're going with that, gardening fork. And he finds the dog there, and then the police are called, and obviously nobody gives a crap about who killed the dog, and they're not really taking it seriously. But him being good-hearted kind of person, he really wants to find out who killed the dog, because he knows that the dog was the best companion of this lady, and because he knows that in murder mystery novels and TV shows, they always figure out who did it. He tries to follow their patterns and the things that they do in those shows and novels, and he tries to figure out who killed the dog. And all the while we experience everything through his eyes. So because he has autism, the things that he doesn't want to eat, or the things that he can't do, or the things that he has difficulty with, and his logic, because he explains everything, and he's writing this book as a project for school. I felt that this was an actual person, and it just felt so complete. So many aspects of their personality were included in this, and his family and just his surroundings. It just was so well written, and it's just such a good book. Next, I read Everything, and this is by Nicola Yoon, and I'm out of breath from talking. And this is about a girl who has lived in a bubble her whole life. She has an illness where she's allergic to everything, and they don't know what her triggers are, so she can't leave the house. She never leaves the house. A family moves in next door, and she and the boy who moves in, like one of the kids, start, you know, having feelings for each other and like getting to know each other and stuff. And then obviously they fall in love, and it's the whole story of like what their relationship, how their relationship starts and works, and her relationship with her mom through like her having a boyfriend and with her nurse. And it's just a very interesting read. I think books like this, even if they're not 100% accurate to the illness, like it would be better if they were more in line with what the illness or the disability actually is, because a lot of times we see illness and disability being like dramatized or used as like a plot point instead of just being part of the identity of the character. Like, I don't know how realistic it is, but it's a good thing that they're even talking about it, because it means that there will be more awareness raised through this. Anyway, about the book itself. The story was okay, a little bit predictable, but like, it was okay. However, I found that the writing style was very refreshing and very easy to read. Man, I am so out of breath and I don't know why. Okay, next I read Bright Young Dead by Jessica Fellows. This is book number 2 in the Mitford Murders series. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or if there's going to be more books in the series, so it remains to be seen. So it's set in the 1920s. We follow the Mitford sisters and their maid Louisa, who, you know, figure out who did it. The thing I felt with this one, it was a little bit more forced. It didn't feel as natural as the first one. I did enjoy reading it. I thought it took me quite a while, and normally when I take a long time to read a book, like more than 2 or 3 days, it's because it's not super gripping or because the subject matter is very heavy. In the first book, I really like Louisa, and I feel like she's just an honest person who has made mistakes and who's trying to like become a better person and who's trying to like grow from them. In this book, obviously, we had to create tension again, but I felt that it was forced. I felt that a lot of the decisions that Louisa made that turned into like the plot, it felt very forced, and it felt very like all the time I was just like, why would you do that? She meant well, and I guess her heart is in the right place, but it's like, why would you get caught up in that? I enjoyed it, but also like, Next, I read Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and this is a retelling of the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. So it's before, you know, the story with Alice, and it sort of explains, you know, you have the Cheshire Cat. I don't know how to say that properly, but that guy. You have the King of Hearts. She's the Queen of Hearts, not the Red Queen. But yeah, you have like the Mad Hatter and all of these characters that we do know, and we sort of see their story and how and what happened and why. I was invested. I liked the story. I did feel like there was a very long build up, and then everything sort of happened very quickly. So it was a little bit slow at the beginning. But I did enjoy it. I liked it a lot. I really do recommend it. Next I read What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. I listened to this mostly on audiobook. This is about 2 boys who meet at the post office. They have this like conversation, and they sort of like have a connection, like a chemistry kind of thing, and they don't swap like numbers or names or anything. And then they try to find each other again. They get together, and one of them is leaving after the summer. So they're both in New York, and one of them lives in New York and the other one is just working there for the summer. So then they have to decide like what happens and all that. One of them is Arthur and the other one is Ben, so we swap between Arthur and Ben's perspectives. I loved the audiobook. The guy who played Arthur was great. Like, I felt like he absolutely nailed it. The way he read the book was just so exciting and so like realistic. And even though it was a little bit like, yeah, I knew that's what was gonna happen, it also is very sweet and like because the characters are very sweet, and I felt really connected to them. It was sweet. Next, I read The Sun Is Also a Star, also by Nicola Yoon. This is similar to What If It's Us. So a girl and a boy meet, and one of them is leaving, so Natasha and Daniel, and Natasha is getting deported back to Jamaica the next day when they meet. And by like, you know, twists and turns, they spend the day together and they fall in love. And yeah, the chapters go between Natasha's perspective and Daniel's perspective, but also we get like little backstories of like people that they meet and that they encounter. Everybody who's sort of involved and who plays a part in their day turning out the way it did. We get a little backstory of why and like what happened and their story. And it's really interesting because it's this concept that obviously every action has a reaction, and sometimes you're not the one who feels the reaction. You have no idea what reaction that even was or what consequence that was. I think that it's an interesting concept. Next I read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is a series that I am so here for. I'm so excited for the next books in this series. I'm really excited about this. I loved it so much. It's like Game of Thrones meets Hunger Games. This is like way in the future, and humans evolved, and some of them got these powers and they can do things. And normally these are the Silvers, and the Reds are just normal people like us who aren't good for anything, and they're just sort of like the main body of work, people who work in factories, people who like do sewing and who provide services for the Silvers. And the economy and everything is set up so that the Reds are always living in poverty and the Silvers are always living not in poverty. And then obviously we find out that our main character, Mare, is a Red. By like twists and fates and whatever, it turns out that she has powers, but she's not a Silver, and this is like unheard of. They hide her in plain sight. They pretend that she's a Silver and that she's some lost princess that, you know, everybody thought was dead. She sort of goes along with it, but then she realizes that she doesn't want to be a part of that, etc. And there's like a rebellion coming through, and there's like amazing plot twists, and it's just so well written. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Really recommend if you're looking for like a new series that is different. Next I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So this is, I don't even know how to explain it. It's set in the future where basically where the government falls and it's taken over kind of, and the new rules are set so that like women don't get to work, and they have to depend on husbands and things like that. And then it evolves to a point, it's very religious, and it evolves to a point where women are separated almost into castes. It's very, very weird. It's like messed up in some things. I was like, what? We follow one of the handmaids, and some things are like specific to her life, and some things are like, the idea is like what would be their normal day and their normal lives in this situation. I think it's very interesting, and it does talk about some interesting points. It's very 1984. Next I read Quidditch Through the Ages. I have read this before, and I really like these little books. They're like extras from the Wizarding World, and there's really sweet illustrations, and it's just like nice extra information about the Wizarding World. And I read another one which I haven't quite finished, but I'll finish today, and this is Tales of Beetle the Bard, and it's again just extra stuff from the Wizarding World. Again, sweet little illustrations. That makes 11 books this month. Moving on, I want to quickly mention TV shows and cinema things that I have done, seen, watched, etc. For the cinema, I went to see Dumbo. It was great. If you still have a chance to see it, go. It's really, really good. It's very sweet. It was very, very beautifully done. Like, it was just beautiful to watch. So I enjoyed that a lot. I also saw The Aftermath, which is with Keira Knightley and some other dude I don't remember the name of. It's set like 5 or 6 months after the war, and they are living in Germany for taking care of like the aftermath of the war, I guess. They move into a house who belongs to a German man, and they end up sharing the house and with him and her daughter, and sort of like stuff happens between them. But I thought it would be more about the historical and political side of it, but it was like 99.9% about their like little weird love triangle, and I really didn't like that. I didn't appreciate that. It was boring. There were some really graphic sex scenes that I thought were like totally unnecessary, because it didn't add anything to the plot. Like, we already know they're having an affair. Like, yeah, and I felt like the very few plot points that were created about the war and about the political tension and things that were happening, they were in there specifically to drive the affair points and the like romance points, plot points, and I didn't appreciate that. In terms of like other things that we watched Westworld. The first season I thought was very good. Season 2, I thought it was like a little bit not as great. Game of Thrones, which is like amazing. It's the final season and it's just like, it's so good. Another exciting thing was that Crimes of Grindelwald came out on DVD, so I got it and I watched it already like 3 or 4 times, so it's great. I love it. I love it so much. Another thing that we watched that it was really good was A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix. The way that it's made is really good and it's very wacky. We're also watching, which is super old, but we're watching Band of Brothers on HBO. It's so good. So it's this series about the Second World War, and it follows a group of air troopers, so like the people who parachuted out of planes and then like fought the other people. That's a great explanation. So it follows them and they're a group and sort of what happens. It is a little bit of a dramatization, but those things actually happened. Like, that is a real, like, it's based on real events and on real people, and you're just like so invested in them, and it's crazy the things that, like, war is just such a crazy thing. It's a really good show. That's all the things that I watched and all the things that I read this month. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I think that is all of the things that I have to say. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this was super long, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!